Okay, got a thumbs up. We'll get our class started on time. I know it's a lot of people come filtering back in. How about now? I think I'm unmuted. So while we get this figured out, obviously I'm not Chet. Chet is out of town today. Chet has been teaching this class this quarter. He thought he had 2 more classes to go. And actually, he's not going to be here next week either, so he asked me if I would fill in the last 2 weeks. Then we both found out that today is actually the last day of the quarter. We had a mission report earlier this quarter that took a Sunday. So rather than try to finish 4 chapters in the book of Proverbs, we're just going to try to wrap up the book. And newsflash, I'm not as smart as Chet, okay? So I've really enjoyed his class. Almost every time I've ever been in a class and we talked about Proverbs, we just picked out Proverbs and we talked about those, kind of all standalone things. And I've loved the fact that he's given us this overview of the makeup of the entire book. And for me, it's really been fascinating and interesting and educational for sure. And it really makes me appreciate, again, the wisdom of God in this wisdom literature. So we're going to fill in. I'm going to fill in. By the way, I'll say this too. I've already had 3 people tell me that they have a Milwaukee, Wisconsin area code. And all the phone calls that I've been denying were actually from members here. So if that's you, let me know, I guess. Okay. Proverbs. How does it end? And why does it end like it ends? I saw someone who said a proverb is much light condensed into one flash. I thought that was a pretty good description. A proverb is much light condensed into one flash, because a good proverb obviously doesn't just tell us something, but it makes us think about a lot of other things, try to connect some dots. I thought we would see how much we've learned this quarter. So I'm going to give you a list of wise sayings. And I want you to tell me, are they from the book of Proverbs or are they from somewhere else? Are they in the Bible or are they not? And I'll tell you this too, I edited them a little bit. Because if I just quoted Proverbs from the Bible, then you would obviously know, okay, that's, train up a child in the way you should go. Okay, that's in the book. So I've edited them a little bit, but I've tried really hard not to change the meaning. So you tell me. And by the way, they all have to do with women, men, relationships. Here's one. Proverbs or proclamation. Good wife, good life. How many people think that's in the Bible? That's absolutely a proverb. How many people think, no, Tim came up with that somewhere else? Depending on the translation. Yeah, I've edited them a little bit. Happy wife, happy life, yeah. That's in Proverbs. So Ron knew it. Proverbs 18:22 basically says if you've got a good wife, you're going to have a good life. Basically says that. Basically. That's right. Thank you, Gary. Here's another one. The age of a woman doesn't mean a thing. The best tunes are played on the oldest fiddles. Yeah, that's exactly. This is not from the book of Tim, by the way, but is that truth found somewhere in Proverbs? Or is that, no, you got that somewhere else? Anybody think it's in Proverbs? Maybe. They're good. Good answer. That's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. So if you got a problem with that, you can blame Ralph, I guess. Here's another one. Women want love to be a novel. Men, a short story, which I thought was pretty good. And I'll tell you, if that's not in Proverbs, it should be. Yeah, that's a pretty wise saying. Women want love to be a novel, men a short story. Anybody think that's actually in the book of Proverbs? Or something very close to that? No, that's whoever that person, I don't even know if that's a man or a woman.
That's in counseling session.
Yeah, there you go. That's either Daphne or Daphne. I don't know. How about this one? Like a gold ring and a pig's snout is a beautiful face on an empty head. Anybody think that's Proverbs? Yeah, that is Proverbs. The pig snout kind of gives it away, but that is Proverbs, like a gold ring and a pig snout. And that actually is from a translation. I didn't reword that. It's like a beautiful face on an empty head. A wise woman builds a lovely home. A foolish man tears it down brick by brick. Don says Proverbs. Anybody think, no, I don't think so. That's Proverbs 14:1. That's pretty close, too. Wise woman builds a lovely house. A foolish man tears it down brick by brick. How about this one? Wisdom decrees these three truths. Nothing good happens late at night. Avoid violence at all costs. Do not entertain women you don't know. Bad things can happen.
That's my mom.
That's Gary's mom. Okay, that's from the book of Tim. Anybody think that's from Proverbs?
Yeah.
That's some. Okay, maybe. Okay, there's some wise truths there. You're going to love this. That's from Nick Saban. Nick Saban said almost that same quote. Actually, he said nothing good happens after midnight. But then the rest is pretty much Nick Saban. So listen to Nick, right, Martha? Yeah. A woman should be like a single flower, not a whole bouquet. That's deep, right? It's very deep. Got to think about that for a while.
That's a man trying to get off buying a dozen roses.
That's a man trying to get out from buying a dozen roses. There you go. That's a good line. I like that. That sounds so romantic when you just give a single flower, right? Good, Debbie. Yeah, that's from Anna Held, whoever Anna Held is. A single flower woman, I guess, is Anna Held. Better to live in a tumble-down shack than share a mansion with a nagging spouse. That's Proverbs. We all know that, right? Better live on the corner of a house than with corner of a house, I think, is what Proverbs 21 says. Yeah, which I gave Chet a hard time last week, because I said, how did you skip that verse? I mean, that's the one that, we always kind of get drawn to. A parent is worn to a frazzle by an irresponsible child. A nagging spouse is like a running toilet. They didn't have running toilets. Like a dripping faucet. Very good. I did edit that. You're right. I tried to fool you on that. There wasn't. It says like a dripping faucet. So yeah, that's Proverbs 19. Your father will give you good advice. Your mother will teach you how to use it. How about that one? Anybody think it's a proverb? Sounds like it, doesn't it? Sounds like it should be. It is Proverbs. Proverbs 6:20, that's in there. Father will give you good advice. Your mother will teach you how to use it. That is true, by the way. All women should know how to take care of children. Most of them will have a husband someday. Think that's a proverb? Doesn't sound like it, does it? It's not. That's Franklin P. Jones. And then I think I got one more. Nope, two more. As usual, there's a great woman behind every idiot. Now that one's reworded. Actually, I won't tell you that, but proverb? It's a truth, but 1 Samuel. That's John Lennon actually said that. I don't know who he's talking about, but that's John Lennon. This is the last one. Wise son, glad father. Stupid son, sad mother. Think it's a proverb? It is a proverb. Proverbs 10:1. Yeah. All those sayings that are in there that they stand alone, or do they make us really kind of dig a little deeper and think a little differently? Since this is the last class, and since I have not been immersed in the book of Proverbs quite like Chet was, I thought a good kind of recap. I want to show you, and probably, I know a lot of you are familiar with this, but probably some of you have seen it before as well. The Bible Recap does different videos, and I want to show you their recap of the book of Proverbs, because I think it gives a really good overview, and then we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about how the book ends. So check this out.
The book of Proverbs. The word proverb typically refers to a short, clever saying that offers some kind of wisdom, and this book has a lot of those. But they're almost all in the center section of the book, chapters 10 to 29. But there is way more going on in the book of Proverbs, especially at the beginning, chapters 1 through 9, and the conclusion, chapters 30 and 31. The book's been designed with an introduction, chapter 1, verses 1 through 9, and it first of all links this book to King Solomon. Now remember the story in 1 Kings chapter 3. Solomon had asked God for wisdom to lead Israel well. And so Solomon became known as the wisest man in the ancient world, and we're told in 1 Kings chapter 4 that he wrote thousands of proverbs and poems and collected knowledge about plants and animals. So Solomon was like the fountainhead of Israel's wisdom literature. So while not all the material in this book is written by him personally, he is where Israel's wisdom tradition began. The introduction says that by reading this book, you too can gain wisdom. Now, wisdom for most of us means knowledge, but the Hebrew word chokhmah means much more than just mental activity. It refers to action also. So think skill or applied knowledge. This is why back in the book of Exodus, chapter 31, it was artists and craftsmen in Israel who were said to have chokhmah. So the purpose of this book is to help you develop a set of practical skills for living well in God's world. And this gets linked with another key idea in the introduction, the fear of the Lord. Now, fear here is not about terror. It's about a healthy sense of reverence and awe for God and about my place in the universe. It's a moral mindset that recognizes I am not God and that I don't get to make up my own definitions of good and evil and right and wrong. Rather, I need to humble myself before God and embrace God's definition of right and wrong, even when that's inconvenient for me. Now, this introduction leads us into the first main section of the book, chapters 1 through 9, which also doesn't contain short one-liner proverbs. Rather, what we find here are 10 speeches from a father to a son about how the son should listen to wisdom and cultivate the fear of the Lord and live accordingly, which means a life of virtue and integrity and generosity, all of which lead to success and peace. And the father warns his son also about folly and evil and stupid decisions that will breed selfishness and pride, all leading to ruin and shame. And so the son should make the pursuit of wisdom and the fear of the Lord his highest goal in life. And this way of thinking, it forms the moral logic of this entire book. Now, these speeches from the father also clue us into what biblical wisdom literature is and how it's different from other parts of the Bible. These books explore how to live well in God's world, but wisdom is not the same as law, like what Moses gave Israel at Mount Sinai. And it's not the same as prophecy, divine speech to God's people. Rather, wisdom literature has the accumulated insight of God's people through the generations about how to live in a way that honors God and others. And so, through the book of Proverbs now, these human words about wisdom have been put together as God's word and wisdom to his people, which connects to the other thing you find in chapters 1 through 9. There are 4 poems from Lady Wisdom. Here, wisdom has been poetically personified as a woman who calls out to humanity to pay attention and to seek her. Wisdom says that she is woven into the fabric of the universe, and so wherever you see people making wise decisions, they are relying on her. So you see someone being generous or having sexual integrity or upholding justice. They are drawing on wisdom. These Lady Wisdom poems, they're a creative, poetic way of exploring this idea that we live in God's moral universe, and that goodness and justice are objective realities that we ignore to our own peril. And so fearing the Lord, living wisely, it's living along the grain of the universe. Now together, these 2 sets of speeches from the Father and Lady Wisdom, they make a powerful claim about this book, that you're not simply reading good advice, you're reading God's own invitation to learn wisdom from previous generations. And so in the next section of the book, chapters 10 through 29, we find hundreds of ancient proverbs, and they apply wisdom and the fear of the Lord to every life topic you could imagine: family, work, neighborhood, friendship, sex, marriage, money, anger, forgiveness, alcohol, debt, everything. And these are all filtered through the value system of Proverbs 1 through 9. Now, these Proverbs, they're all pretty short, they're easy to memorize, and actually this section of the book is meant to become a reference work that you return to time and time again throughout the years, which raises some important issues in learning how to read these Proverbs. First of all, Proverbs are by nature about probabilities. So you fear the Lord and you make wise, good choices, things will likely go well for you. And if you don't fear the Lord, you're foolish, your life will likely not go so well. Now, that is all often true, but not always. Which leads to the next point, that Proverbs are not promises. They're not formulas for success. So, some Proverbs, for example. The fear of the Lord prolongs your life, but the years of the wicked are cut short. Or, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't turn from it. So yes, fearing God, being a moral person, will most likely lead to a better, longer life, and raising your kids in a stable, loving home does set them up well, but there are no guarantees. Lots of things can and often do go wrong in our world. And so lastly, Proverbs by nature focus on the general rule, but not the exceptions, which are many. And the wisdom books actually aren't ignorant of that. The exceptions are what the other wisdom books, Job and Ecclesiastes, are all about. And together, these acknowledge that life is too complex for simple formulas, which is why we need all of the wisdom books together to get the bigger picture. This all leads to the final section of the book, 2 large collections of poems. First, poems from a man named Agur, who begins by acknowledging his own ignorance and folly and his great need for God's wisdom. And then Agur discovers that divine wisdom has been given to him in the scriptures, which teach him how to live well. And so Agur is put before us as like a model reader of the book of Proverbs, somebody who's always open to hearing God's wisdom through the scriptures. The final poems are connected to a man named Lemuel. He's a non-Israelite king, and he passes on the wisdom that was given to him by his mom. It's guidance for being a wise and just leader. And then the final poem is an acrostic or an alphabet poem where each line begins with a new letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And the entire poem's about the woman of noble character. It depicts a woman who lives according to the wisdom of Proverbs and stands like a model of someone who takes God's wisdom and then translates it into practical decisions in everyday life, at work or at home, in her family and in her community. So the book opened with words from a father to a son about listening to Lady Wisdom, and so now the book closes by offering the words of a mother to her son about a woman who lives wisely. The book of Proverbs is for every person in every season of life. It's a guide for living wisely and well in God's good world. And that's what the book of Proverbs is all about.
If you were in Chet's class for most of this quarter, that will all sound familiar to you. He did a great job of kind of zeroing in on each of those divisions and sections. Since we only have now 20 minutes left, in 30 minutes, whatever, left in this class, I want to skip to what might be the most recognizable part of the entire book, and that is Proverbs 31. A wife of noble character. Women, are you sick of hearing about the Proverbs 31 woman? Most classes that you hear on Proverbs 31, if I were a woman, I think I would leave feeling guilty and a little bit depressed. Why don't you get up and fix my breakfast before I get up in the morning? Why don't you buy me a field? Why don't you make us some more money? Why don't you stay up late at night getting our house clean? Why don't you have it all together like that woman there from 1955? I think maybe we've been reading Proverbs 31 all wrong for a long time. Starts by saying, these are the words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. O my son, O son of my womb, O son of my promises. We don't know a thing about King Lemuel, by the way. He is not an Israelite king. There's no Israel, Judah. There's no list of including a king by the name of Lemuel. He does appear to be a godly man. He believes in Jehovah. Probably a pagan king. His name means belonging to God. You might hear or read that Lemuel is a pseudonym for Solomon, and that who is actually saying these things to him is his mother Bathsheba. There's really no indication or reason to, in any of the writings or historical references to believe that that's true. I don't think this is Solomon talking about Bathsheba. I think this is a mother who loves her son enough to pass on some wisdom. As the video pointed out, the book Proverb opens with a father talking to a son. It ends with a mother talking to her son about wisdom. Real quick, can you think of any other biblical women who taught their son? There's a few. Mary, thank you. Hannah, excellent. Sarah, nice. Eunice and Lois, Timothy's mom and grandmother. Yeah. You know, the scripture's full, really, of women, godly women who taught their son. Chapter 31 begins with Lemuel's mother instructing her son how to live his life. She's not talking about a woman first. She's talking about how to live his life. Why don't we ever talk about the Proverbs 31 man, right? You never see that quoted. We never talk about it. Be the Proverbs 31 man. But this mom gives her son very important, very pointed instructions. Here's what she says. Do not spend your strength on women, on those who ruin kings. And it is not for kings, O Lemuel, to guzzle wine. Rulers should not crave liquor. For if they drink, they may forget their duties and be unable to give justice to those who are oppressed. Liquor is for the dying, and wine is for those in deep depression. Let them drink to forget their poverty and remember their troubles no more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those who are perishing. Yes, speak up for the poor and helpless and see that they get justice. So this wise mother shares with her son a couple important things. Yeah?
Doesn't that sound a lot like chapter 1?
Sure does.
Where the father is talking to the son?
Does sound a lot like chapter 1. And I think there's some really interesting, great balance here, because and a dad should be saying these exact same things to his son.
Thus the writer, question being, is the writer of Proverbs the same person, instead of saying, well, now it's this person and that person? Is the writer the same person all along?
I got an answer for you. Ask Chet Duke. Ask Chet Duke. I don't know. But it is very much the same message that came from the father. But I got to tell you, it hits different when it comes from a mother. You know, a mother will share the same message, and it hits different on a young man coming from a mom. So she says, be careful with women. Be careful with alcohol. It's going to make you a poor leader. Be a voice for the voiceless. Be a defender of the poor and the needy. Maybe this chapter's about telling women what they need to do, is less about telling women what they need to do to reach some level of unattainable perfection, and more about a mother instructing her son on how to appreciate his godly wife, which I think puts things in a different perspective. So, ladies, you can listen in for the rest of this class, but it's really for us guys. I think it's really for us husbands, teaching us how to encourage and appreciate and honor our wives. So, let's go ahead and take a look at how the chapter and the book ends here in chapter 31. It ends with Superwoman. Proverbs 31. Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? As the video mentioned, the end of the chapter here is an acrostic. It is an alphabet poem. Each line begins with the next letter from the Hebrew alphabet, which would have made it very easy to memorize if you can read Hebrew. I can't, but here's what the text says. Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She's worth more than precious rubies. Her husband can trust her, and she will greatly enrich his life. She will not hinder him, but help him all her life. She finds wool and flax and busily spins it. She's like a merchant's ship. She brings her food from afar. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household and plan the day's work for her servant girls. She goes out to inspect a field and buys it with her earnings. She plants a vineyard. She is energetic and strong, a hard worker. She watches for bargains. Her lights burn late into the night. Her hands are busy spinning thread, her fingers twisting fiber. She extends a helping hand to the poor and opens her arms to the needy. She has no fear of winter for her household, because all of them have warm clothes. She quilts her own bedspreads. She dresses like royalty in gowns of finest cloth. Her husband is well known, for he sits in the council meeting with the other civic leaders. She makes belted linen garments and sashes to sell to the merchants. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs with no fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise, and kindness is the rule when she gives instruction. She carefully watches all that goes on in her household and does not have to bear the consequences of laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. There are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive. Beauty does not last. But a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. Reward her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. Whew. Yeah, the Proverbs 31 woman. Okay, understand, this is not a real woman, okay? This is absolutely not a real live woman. This is a highlight reel, okay? This is a highlight reel full of all these praiseworthy attributes that a woman might acquire over a lifetime. Lemuel's mother never talks about her struggles, her sins, her hardships, her terrible days. And you know she has them, okay? This Proverbs 31 woman, she was never meant to be a checklist of all the things that a woman should do and a woman needs to become. You will never measure up to the Proverbs 31 woman. And I don't think a woman's supposed to. I don't think that our wives are meant to. You think of your favorite Instagram poster, YouTuber, kind of social influencer. You only see their very best days. I mean, you don't see their real life. All the pictures they post are, highly filtered. And they just look amazing. And, you look at these people on social media and, oh my goodness, what can't this person do? You never see their defeats. You never see their bad days. You always see them at their best. And yet I think there's still some things that we as husbands, and I guess some things that wives can learn, surely, from Proverbs 31. That's why it's in the Bible, right? But I think there's some things that we can learn from this unbelievable description of what would be an unbelievable wife. You're not going to be that person. But you can take some things from that description. Hey, Matt, Michael has a comment.
Just like when you start out, say chapter 1, start about how the father talks to the son, and then 31 starts out how the woman instructs her son. And then you read the rest of the chapter. It made me think about 1 Corinthians chapter 11 showed the structure of the church, and chapter 5 shows you Christ is the husband, the church is his wife. He knows his bride is not perfect, but he shows the husband and the wife how they should love and admonish one another and glorify God. That's how I take it in a whole nutshell.
That is a great parallel. That is a great, down here too, Matt, to Gary. That is a great pickup. Thank you for that. Jesus knew what the wisdom of the Proverbs, right? Here comes the mic, Gary.
Okay. One of my favorite things to do when you sit down with folks that are struggling, and I think it's kind of like when we read Proverbs, you look at it, and I think the father, and then you look at the mother. They're sitting down with their children and they're doing the same thing. For years when I would sit down at my desk and with folks, I'm trying to be the father and the mother at the same time with the Word of God. My favorite thing, instead of going to Proverbs, is using the New Testament, and I'd almost always go to Galatians chapter 5. Why? Well, in Galatians chapter 5, which you have, is a beautiful split where it's saying, here's the life with those that live with the Spirit, okay? This beautiful life in the Spirit with the Word of God, okay? And then here is the life of those that are living in the darkness, the ones that are with the envy and the strife, just the things that are obvious. Okay, so no matter how we sit down, and you can take them step by step, they're obvious. And I'm going to say that we can say that people that live like this, guarantee this, it says, will not inherit heaven. It's going to end up bad. And we can say, oh no, I know billionaires that, oh, you think that's going to be good? Because no. What the Lord's telling us is it's going to be really, really bad. If you think a lake of fire, because hell's real and hell's hot. So really, the truth is that that's bad, but here's what's really good. And think about life. Think about life where there's gentleness and kindness. Think about this, where this is in your family, and so you take Proverbs, and you take a wife that's living in this house, that's being blessed by living in the Word of God, and you can find this woman being blessed this way. And I think there are some certainties that even God provides for us. And there are some certain things, even in the Old Testament, that the evil one will rob from you. Your heart, your mind, when you don't get into the Word, when you turn your back from God, and that it becomes certainties. Yeah. That just, and has life not shown me that over and over and over again?
Yeah, you bet. Back here to Tony. Thanks for that.
Have you ever seen the Building the Perfect Quarterback? It's like Tom Brady's clutch, Peyton Manning's brain, Lamar Jackson's running. It's like, this is the ideal perfect quarterback. It's like nobody's like that. But if you wanted to build one, here it is. And I think Proverbs as a whole lays it out for you. Like nobody's ever going to attain everything that's in the book, but here it is if you want to read it and soak it in. And I also think about Jesus. We have his example to follow. We're not ever going to be exactly like Jesus, but here it is laid out for you. This is how you should act. This is how you should respond to people. This is how you should be a servant towards others. And so I just think, when we're reading through Proverbs, it's like he said in the video, these are the rules to kind of obtain wisdom. There are exceptions to the rules. We're never going to be able to follow it exactly, but here it is for us to read and reread and soak it in.
Yeah, great thought. My very first slide was the end of the book. Why does it end that way? Maybe that's the perfect way for it to end. This is sort of the summary of the things that you can expect, if you're trying to live that life. Debbie.
And the beauty of the Bible is it's a living word.
There you go.
And scripture can speak to me today for a particular need or issue in my life. and I can read it 3 months later, and it speaks totally different to me for that time in my life. And that's why it says it's living and active, because it's going to continue to convict and bless our lives as we keep going through it.
Yeah, nice, great. You know, you're exactly right. You're all exactly right. And I think that's the beauty of this passage, for me at least. Okay, my wife is never going to be all of those things. And I would never be all of the things that I read. But that doesn't mean that the Word's not active and alive. That doesn't mean that we just ignore it, because there's some great things in there. You know, I watch HGTV sometimes. I'm never going to be able to do the stuff that Chip Gaines does, okay? You know, I can't afford it for one, but, you know, I can't do those things. I can't decorate like his wife, but, okay, I like that. And I could incorporate some of that into my life. I listen to Dave Ramsey sometimes. I'm not going to make money like Dave Ramsey does, but there's some nuggets there. Okay, if I wanted to lower my debt, he gives some good advice. I can pick some of that. I can learn some of those things. Who's the lady that does the decluttering? The famous Marie Kondo. Yeah, I say that like I know who that is, but I know the name because so many people have told me. I'm never going to declutter my house like Marie Kondo would. I'm a clutterer, not a declutterer, which drives my Proverbs 31 wife crazy. But there's some, you know, if it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it. Okay, there's some wisdom there. Okay? There's things that we can use. There are things that we can learn from. Here's a thought. Maybe this will help. Instead of thinking about the Proverbs 31 woman as the perfect influencer on Instagram, think about her as an older, wiser woman who's lived a full life, has much to teach us. She wants to pass on her knowledge so we don't make the same mistake. She wants us to live a more abundant life. She wants us to find joy in surrendering to God. Questions? The Proverbs 31 woman isn't a productivity blogger trying to teach us some hacks on how to get the best out of our day. It's much more about specific attributes. It's much less about specific attributes, and I think more about her attitude. What do you notice about this woman's attitude as she responds to family and life, and or what kind of words in the text kind of describe that attitude? What is it about this woman's attitude? Not so much all the amazing things that she does, that she must have 60 hours in every day to get it done. Hugh.
I wonder if this wasn't written not about a wife, but the king or whoever Lemuel was. He was writing about the attributes that he saw in his own mother. Because when you think about these things, when I think about my mother, she was this perfect woman. You know, maybe not as the wife side, but for raising a family of 8 kids. I mean, we revered my mother. She changed my life one time with one saying. She was upset with me, brought me into a bedroom and said, "Hugh, for the rest of your life," and she was crying when she said this, "you live your life to try to not make me cry again, then I'll be happy with you." And every time I had something that was a moral choice to make, I think, would this make Mama cry or make her happy? And everything became simple. So I think that if you think about what's being said here from the standpoint of how would a man view his mother, then this stuff, you view your mother as a perfect being.
Yeah. Everything I am and ever hope to be, I owe to my darling mother. That's what Abraham Lincoln said. Boy's best friend is his mother. I think that's Norman Bates, wasn't it? Just as true, though, right? Pamela.
I don't normally speak, but I have to speak.
Come on.
What I get out of this, and I do have to say, I went to Florida College. I had to memorize this scripture, this part of scripture.
In Hebrew?
To pass, and I had to say it in front of Homer Haley.
Ooh, wow.
Which was very difficult, but I
intimidating.
passed. But what I get out of this is we as women, we are different than men. We do things, we do amazing things, we do it quietly. We don't do it with a lot of fanfare, leaps and bounds, but our kindness and our love and our duty to our family and our children and other people, and we do everything quietly. We can't speak in the pulpit. We can't pray in front of other men. We can't lead singing, but it's amazing what we can do as women, and I think it's just telling us, don't underestimate what a woman can do in her lifetime.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I got on there, what kind of words in the text? Go ahead, Matt.
To answer your question, I think she's exhibiting hardworking mindset, a courageous mindset, someone who has a hope for the future, for family. Really this passage, this chapter hits me as all the other chapters in action. This wife has put all of the Proverbs into place in her life. And I think you could probably just source all of her attributes and all of her doings from the previous Proverbs.
Yeah, you go back and she's the embodiment of all this other stuff. By the way, I said what kind of words in the text describe her attitude. Husbands, did you notice some adjectives directed to us? She is loved, respected, appreciated, praised in public and in private. As husbands, we better be loving, respecting, praising publicly and privately our wives. Let me end with one last slide. I think I got one more slide. I think Lemuel's mom saved the best for last. A woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. A woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Chet talked quite a bit about that. You husbands, regardless of what your wife is or isn't, if you have a wife that fears the Lord, you are incredibly blessed. If you have a wife that fears the Lord, you have a Proverbs 31 woman, and you need to praise her publicly and privately. Absolutely. Over here in the corner.
I just want to quickly add that I don't look at it so much as a checklist, but more of a standard for the woman. And we go by standards nowadays. It's a model that this woman is setting of what a woman should look like. And it's kind of like setting that expectation. So my opinion, I feel a woman can be all of this. She can be, let me pick out a couple of adjectives here. She brings her husband good, not harm. That's very doable. She's very handy with her hands. That's very doable. We do it all the time. She makes her dealings profitable. She takes care of her house. We do it all the time. She's the model that women should be for society and what she should be for her husband, more so. She's handy with her hands, and she gives to the poor. She's loving, and in turn of those sacrifices, her husband praises her. Why? Because she fears the Lord. So I think it's not so much of a checklist, but it's the woman who's trying to be in the image of Christ, which is what we should be doing. I think the brother over there mentioned about that the husband is supposed to love the wife as Christ loved the church. That's a very doable thing. Yeah. So why can't the woman be all of this? Yeah. I think, I really think she can be that, but the world and society tells us, no, take a couple of things off your list. No, you can be this. Yeah. The Proverbs 31 woman is doable, I think. I'm not challenging you, but I really think, I'm not
a woman.
I really think so, and especially if she has a role of maybe changing lives. Like, I'm a teacher, and I have to live by the standard every single day when I go in front of children. I want to be all of that. So it's like, it's that standard that we have to be as women. And men has a standard too. I don't know what y'all standards are, but women, we have to live by this, and it's very doable.
Yeah. Okay.
And then she then is going to look like that mature woman that you showed in the last slide.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Charlene. Yeah, the things that is listed in this woman, they're not impossible, you know. Yeah, a woman can do those things. I don't know about, you know, buying fields and all that. I guess women do that all the time too. But yeah, just like as we try to follow Christ, we don't quite always get there. But God doesn't call us to do something that is impossible to do. So yeah, thanks for that. Hey, we are out of time. Unfortunately, Chet is not going to have a week for rebuttal of all the things that I've said, but I hope you've enjoyed. I'm sure you have enjoyed this class as much as I have. Thank him for it. He put a lot of work. Everybody that teaches puts a lot of work into their lessons, and I know that Chet put a lot of work into this, and I was really blessed by it. So, and thanks for being a part of class today. We're out of time, so we'll be dismissed. Thank you.